I'm Nolan Beilstein, and welcome to another episode of Gen Z in Manufacturing, a podcast where I interview young people about their journeys in manufacturing, how they intend to influence the industry, and what they are looking for from an employer. For this episode, I welcome Colton Harnar, a 29-year-old CNC programmer for Sen Cut Sen, an on-demand custom sheet metal and CNC machining manufacturing company. Harnar has been in the machining industry for 10 years and CNC programming for 5 years. He started as an entry-level CNC operator in a shop at a foundry, gained experience with more involved and complicated setup work, and later learned how to program. His current position consists of CNC programming for mainly 5-axis milling machines, implementing and improving processes, and dialing in new tools and machines. Before we hear from Harnar, please make sure to like and share this episode of Gen Z in Manufacturing. To view previous episodes, visit manufacturing.net. If you are a member of Gen Z and would like to discuss your experience in the manufacturing industry, please get in touch with me, Nolan Beilstein, at nolan@ien.com. Well, Colton, thank you for joining this episode of Gen Z in Manufacturing. The majority of people I've interviewed on this podcast have said that they kind of backed into a manufacturing career, but in our email exchange, you told me that getting into it was kind of a necessity for you. So how did you decide to get into this industry?
I had kids pretty young. So right out of high school, I was actually working at a tire shop at the time. What had happened was a friend of mine was working at a aluminum foundry. They had a machine shop there, and he basically was like, "Hey, we have an opening." The pay was a little better than I was making, and it was like unlimited overtime. I was like, "Yeah, I'll check it out." And I mean the job wasn't great, but it was easy. It was easy to get, hit the quota for how many parts I needed to make a day. It was just operating. So just deburring parts, loading and unloading machines, troubleshooting alarms, really basic entry level CNC operating.
You mentioned that overtime work allowed you to make pretty good money. And I've noticed in some of my interviews that Gen Z doesn't seem to treat pay the same way that previous generations have. And one person told me that she's happy at her current job making less than she did at her old job where she was miserable. So when did you stop viewing it as a paycheck, and what sparked that change from a job to a craft?
Not for a while. For a while, it was just a paycheck. I would say for the first half of working in the industry, it was really just, especially the overtime thing, it can become kind of a trap to where it's hard to leave that job for another job that's not offering that. I would say 4 years in, it was a paycheck, and it took me a while before I really started to focus on, do I want to just be doing this, or do I want to further my career? And what had happened was I actually took a little bit of a pay cut to go to another company because I knew it was going to be a better opportunity. I could learn more. They were making a lot of different things, more variety of parts in the machining industry. I think that's the best way to get experience fast is making different things and running different machines. Definitely that helped me. That was like the best decision I made because that's exactly what happened. I moved jobs. Got a ton of experience, more hands-on, more complicated setup work. And then from there, I did pretty well doing that. And that's when I was given a chance to learn how to program CNCs. And then from there, I've done that ever since.
So what you're saying is I've kind of heard that a lot from younger workers, where they say that once they start to feel stuck at a job as when they start looking around and looking to leave. What kind of advice would you give to an employer, to a manager, to keep their young talent interested and prevent them from eventually moving on?
I think a lot of that can just be solved with communication. I think, you got to communicate as the employee, like what you want to do, what your goals are. And then their answer is going to really tell you everything you need to know. If they're willing to move you around and give you some opportunities, or maybe you're not ready for those, then they'll let you know what you need to hit in order to make that happen. But as far as the employer goes, it's just giving people opportunities, especially the younger generation. I mean, in machining, it's very common. Like people spend 10 or 20 years in the trade, and then they get in a manager position or a CNC programmer, and then depending on the size of the company, that they just don't have more of those positions to fill, and that can be a real problem for a lot of companies. If you don't have the opportunities to give, then I don't know how you solve that.
Before your first day at your first job, what kind of opinion had you formed about the manufacturing industry and being a machinist?
I really didn't know too much about it. I mean, I barely knew what a CNC machine did. I think that the common stereotype would be that it's boring, probably. I think manufacturing does seem boring to a lot of people. I think it's getting more and more popular, especially with people who love to build things and make things. People who have hobbies like in robotics or racing cars, aerospace, whatever it is. I think it just because of the internet, there's so much out there now. It's more popular than ever. But I still think it does have that boring aspect of it that kind of turns people away from it. That's where I think the giving people opportunities, I think early on is really what's going to fix that. I think like we're doing here, helping people kind of see the whole side of manufacturing, not just here you go, push your broom for a long time and then maybe we'll show you something. We're very open with how we do things and what the actual jobs are and opportunities look like. From entry level all the way to CNC programming and managing. I think they're doing a lot right here. I think as far you've asked a lot about what employers could be doing. I think here at Senkotsen they're doing a great job with just with that communication aspect. They're always keeping us in the loop on what's going on with the company and how things are going and what our next step is. It makes everyone feel like they're a part of a team. They have a common goal. We're not just here to do our job and forget about everyone else. It's we're all chasing the same goal.
And so you're only a year into this one, but it sounds like you're already pretty confident in what they're doing and their culture. So at what point did you notice that there was something a little different going on here?
I would say day one. I mean, I think at least in the first week, it was just everyone's attitude that had been here, whether they were here for a week or here for a couple of years, it was like they had the same attitude, like just positive things to say about the company and happy to be here.
You mentioned that the communication can help with hurting or disproving the stereotype of manufacturing being boring, and that can help for people that are already interested and already working in the industry. But how would you go about combating that boring stereotype for people who aren't in it yet and are still looking for a career to pursue?
I think the innovation in the industry right now it can definitely help with that. I think just all the cool things we're doing. I think the technology involved. I think there's a lot of people that are just tech savvy, or maybe they're into video games, things like that. And they might not know about this whole industry, but then, if they see a little bit of what it's about and how things operate, they can kind of see the similarities there and how the troubleshooting and strategy comes into play, like in this industry, especially. That's what I like about my job. I would say I really like the creativity part of it, the strategic way you have to approach things.
You told me that you've had 6 jobs and 5 of them have been in machining, correct?
Yes.
And you told me that one of your stops, you moved on because you didn't feel like you weren't progressing within a career. But do you feel like each other stop contributed positively to your professional growth?
Yeah, I think every job I've had has contributed. I think it's helped me. Some have helped me more than others, but I think I've learned different skills along the way every single time. I think one of those lessons was just once you stop progressing, you gotta move on. Once things become too easy, either you're gonna get stuck, and if you're happy with it and you've decided to kind of settle, then I think that's one thing. But if you're not ready for that, you got to make the decision to move on.
Where do you think the machining industry gets it wrong with developing their talent? I know you talked about communication issues, but is there anything else with the training, how the industry goes about that you think they need to adapt?
Yeah, I think a lot of the industry, tribal knowledge is like a real hang up in a lot of shops. Someone it's usually like a handful of employees that have worked in a place for a long time have all of the knowledge and they're the go-to people. And instead of organizing better processes and spreading that throughout the team, it kind of just funnels to those people. And I think that turns people away, but also it's not good for the business.
So I imagine when you're encountering this tribal knowledge, you've also seen clashes between old school and new school machinists.
Yeah.
Aside from, just general problem solving, where else do these worlds clash the most?
It's kind of a respect thing. I think a lot of the time, especially like I've started at shops as CNC programmer, and every single time I've learned you have to earn people's respect, no matter the age, but especially people that have been in the trade for a long time. They're like right away they just assume you might not know what you're doing, and you really have to be patient with that. And then eventually, as long as you're patient with it, you work with people well, you communicate, I think you can break that pretty quick. But I think that's always something I've noticed.
Do you see that mindset changing as people your age become more senior work members, or do you think it'll continue even when you have decades of experience on the new generation coming in?
I think it's really an environment thing. It's an environment thing, and it's going to carry on with those companies where that's the work culture. Places where it's more a little open minded, and everyone shares what they know. Everyone's open about things. Everyone knows mistakes are going to be made. That's how you learn. That's how things improve. Those places, if there's enough companies that can adapt and create that environment, I think things can get a lot better.
What advice would you give to employers who are trying to fill in those generational gaps in their workforce?
I think that ties into what I was saying earlier. I think you got to give people opportunities. I think you got to move people around. Sometimes it's not the most efficient way to do things by having people do different jobs and try new things, but I think overall it helps the success of the company. It's gonna help you retain employees. It's gonna help you also. Everyone's gonna learn a little more if they're not just stuck on the same thing, stuck on the same machine or the same job, the same title.
The way you're talking about it kind of sounds like a holistic approach to being a worker rather than having one specialty and hammering that home for 40, 50 years. Do you think the rest of your generation thinks this way, the way that you're describing, that everyone needs to get a little bit experience in everything?
There's a lot of jobs that are going to be repetitive in manufacturing. I mean, especially like if you're making a product, if you're making a specific product, you're going to have repetitive jobs doing that. So in order to break some of that up, you gotta be willing to balance it out like that and mix things up.
Do you see yourself staying in manufacturing until retirement, or do you have plans to try something different down the road?
I'm always pretty open-minded about that, but I see myself staying in it. I mean, I don't have any other plans as of now. I really like where I'm at, and I like what I'm doing. I think if you can find something you're happy with in manufacturing and something you really enjoy, I think, that's all you can ask for.
So you've experienced manufacturing for years, from the entry level up. When your kids reach the point of choosing between college and a trade and what they kind of want to do for the rest of their life, what advice are you going to give them?
Looking into the actual job and what that consists of is super important. I feel like I have seen a lot of people go through all the schooling to become a manufacturing engineer, mechanical engineer. I don't want to speak for across the board, but I've definitely seen where that ends up being kind of more of a paperwork job, and people are not happy with that. Um, so, but I think that goes with everything. I think don't chase a title. I think find what the job consists of and see if that's something you're interested in, whether that's managing or programming. No matter what, I think you got to look at what does that actually look like day to day.
Thank you for watching this episode of Gen Z in Manufacturing. Please make sure to like and share the episode. To view previous episodes, visit manufacturing.net. If you are a member of Gen Z and would like to discuss your experience in the manufacturing industry, please get in touch with me, Nolan Beilstein, at nolan@in.com.